So now we get to the crazy part, chapter 14, which I have to say, I love this chapter. The imagery is so incredibly graphic. It's horrible at the beginning, and then it's awesome. And I'm just going to read it. I'm going to read 1 through 9. At the day of the Lord is coming, Jerusalem, when your possessions will be plundered and divided up within your very walls. I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem to fight against it. The city will be captured, the houses ransacked, and the women raped. Half of the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be taken from the city. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as he fights on a day of battle. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem. And the Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley, half of the mountain moving north and half moving south. You will flee by my mountain valley, for it will extend to Azel. You will flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord will come, and all the holy ones with him. On that day, there'll be neither sunlight nor cold, frosty darkness. It will be a unique day, a day known only to the Lord, with no distinction between day and night. When evening comes, there will be light. On that day, living water will flow out from Jerusalem, half of it east to the Dead Sea, half of it west to the Mediterranean Sea. In summer and in winter, the Lord will be king over the whole earth. On that day, there will be one Lord, in his name, the only name.
I mean, I asked earlier, like, what would you do? Do you want me to talk about this personally, right? Like, so my wife, Crystal, was raped 3 times before she met Jesus. So whenever I mean, like, it's just branded into my mind. So when I see the word in verse 3, rape,
I hate that word.
It's like, so, yeah, it's branded into my mind. It's so when you're saying this stuff about a mountain, here's what it makes me think of. Jesus talking with a woman, with a Samaritan woman.
Are you going to start crying?
I always get emotional when I think about the woman at the well. Sorry. I think about when Jesus looks at this woman and he says, I tell you the truth, the time is now coming when we won't worship on this mountain or that mountain. But the true worshipers will worship in spirit and in truth. And it's a moment where Jesus, like, puts a fist through the wall and just says, we're not going to define ourselves by our ethnicity, by who raised us. We're not going to define ourselves by our past trauma. And we're not going to define ourselves by what church we went to. We're going to define ourselves as the people who follow Jesus are the people who define themselves as getting their life and their breath from the living water. Because the context, right, of that conversation with the woman at the well is, if you would ask me for a drink, I'd give you water. You'd never thirst again. The true worshipers won't worship on a mountain. The mountain's been split in two, and there's water coming out of it. And I'm now worshiping in spirit and truth because of this water. And not only that, but it's all the people that I really hate. It's all the people who have wounded me and hurt me. Sorry. It's the people who've hurt my wife. Because at the core of it, like, it's really not about that I have the right answers. And that's what makes me Israel. It's about the fact that everybody who has ever, everybody in some sense is a victim of the great, to be a Bible nerd again, is a victim of the great Babylon, is a victim of the kingdom of man, the kingdom of I decide what's right and wrong. Everyone is a victim of sin. Everyone who perpetuates sin, it's been perpetuated to them.
Mm-hmm.
The Egyptians are only doing what they've always known. The Babylonians are only doing what they've always known. A time is going to come when those people, their eyes are open and they have supplication. They come in a spirit of supplication and grace, and they realize who they've pierced, and they get to follow Jesus too. And if I don't do that, if I don't look at my own heart, then I am part of the problem. Then I am part of Babylon. This is why Israel missed it. Israel missed it because they thought that they were the chosen people who got to, that because they were the chosen people, they got to oppress whoever they wanted to because they were the ones. And God didn't have that. Anytime that I think I've got the answers and I know who's in charge here, and I'm pointing at myself, then I've become the oppressor. My only job is to come in supplication and grace, to tell the world, come and see a man who told me all that I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
There's water pouring out, and it's not about mountains. It's about this water that everybody gets to drink if they want to drink it. Even my own enemies. Praise God. That's the best news I've heard in a long time, to think of that. That's so much better than there will be a people who's better than everybody else. It's phenomenal to think that someday there's going to be Ukrainians and Russians sitting at the table together. That there's going to be Native Americans and Western Europeans sitting at the table together. That there's going to be people who were born and raised in Jim Crow era America sitting down with people who are whose parents were slaves, whose grandparents were slaves, and they're going to be sitting down at a table together because they all had a moment where they realized whose side they pierced.